getting started.
Let's go.
All right. I think we are live and ready. So Habiba, thank you very, very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So the purpose of today's session is just to have a bit of a discussion on the elephant in the room. Obviously, I've been doing a 21-day challenge. It's been a very extreme challenge, and I've reiterated many times it is not healthy. It is not recommended. It's definitely not the smart way to go about weight loss. It's just something that I wanted to do to push myself to kind of break some habits I've been picking up. But what comes along hand in hand a lot with severe calorie restriction and dieting is this topic of eating disorders. It's a very important one. So thank you for volunteering to touch up a little bit more on that and maybe give a bit of personal experience. Do you mind introducing yourself, first of all, and who you are, where you're from, how we know each other, what you do, where you want to be when you grow up, all that fun stuff?
So I am Habiba. I know you from Repton. You were a teacher while I was at Repton. Ever? Yay.
Not your teacher, thankfully, right?
You're not my teacher, but you were a teacher while I was at Repton. One of the more famous ones. Yeah, and I honestly, I think that the opportunity to be able to speak up and talk about issues of weight and eating disorders and stuff is very important, and I'm very grateful. I study biochemistry at Imperial College. I think probably the most interesting part of biochemistry to me and all science to me is the nutritional biochemistry. I think there are lots of teeny weeny things, tiny chemicals and all of that that decides how our body deals with food, how our body deals with hunger and satiation and all of that. So I've read a lot into food, weight loss, weight gain, eating disorders, all of that. And unfortunately, I think all of us have to some extent experienced some difficulties with food, some more than others. And I really think that it's very important to not only shed light on eating disorders as a whole, but also to the concept of disordered eating and the different forms it can take. You don't have to be super skinny. You don't have to be super obese to be classified as having a disordered eating problem, or to be able to kind of take your eating habits into consideration and really think about them properly. Yeah.
Nice. And I agree. I think that's probably one of the biggest points we can end up making, because yeah, if you ask anyone to draw a picture of someone who may possibly have an eating disorder, they probably either draw them like stick thin, anorexic, or morbidly obese. What about that poor middle majority probably who are getting overlooked and often not even considered to give support and help? So thank you for bringing that up. Do you want to get a little bit into your own personal? I mean, you've known me for a while. I've been through some major body transitions. I've been through about 3 transformations in my life overall. First time was in university. It wasn't very healthy. It was just living on my own for the first time, peer pressure, not making friends. So, you know, I just stopped eating for a bit, and then eventually I got a bit healthier again. Second time was when I first moved to Dubai. It was a new life, new opportunity. I was working, I was like in the big world. So I decided to once again take control of my life. And then this most recently, when I got married. So actually for me, like I tend to improve my health when I'm happier in a way. Like I take better care of myself, and which is interesting for me. So when I'm sad, I very much emotionally, when I'm sad, I kind of almost purposefully overeat, I want to say. Because it's a form of control, isn't it? It's the one thing.
Yeah, it's like I know that this piece of food is going to make me like chocolate. Everyone says chocolate fixes everything. It's like if I eat this hot dog, I'm just gonna feel better because I know I've done it a million times. I know what it feels like, and it's a response in the brain. It's actually it's a physical chemical response in the brain to the food that you like, which makes people want to emotionally eat. And I definitely struggle with that. I know that. So basically I've been a yo-yo dieter forever, and probably younger than I would care to say. Unfortunately, it's very difficult not to, as children especially, to succumb to people saying, oh, you've gained weight, oh, you've lost weight, oh, you look nice, oh, one more kilo down from that dress and you look perfect. It's very difficult, and it starts very young. And I think maybe around year 7, I really started thinking about it. But I remember when I was in year 5, this is the first time I can remember comparing my body to others, looking at other people, thinking, I wish I looked like that. When I was doing gymnastics in year 5, and I came back and I said, all the other girls' legs look like sticks. They're all so skinny and I'm not. I was in year 5.
What's that, about 9 years old?
I was about 9 years old, yeah. And through the years, I was always, anyone from Wrexham will know I was a huge nerd. I'm still a huge nerd. I've come to terms with that. I know that I am loud, I am nerdy, and I don't care. That's who I am. Yeah,
I can vouch for this. Very true.
but I struggled with that identity for so many years, especially, let's say, I think from year 9 to year 11 was when I especially struggled with who I was and being nerdy and being loud and being different. And what I used to do was every single day after school, sometimes it would be difficult, I would leave school straight away and I would go to the petrol station, and every single day I would buy a hot dog, I would buy a peach iced tea, I would buy a bag of jelly bones or chocolate, and I would eat them on the way home. And sometimes I'd get a second bag of candy and I'd leave it in my drawer, and I would just do my work while snacking on sugar, because that's all I did. And obviously very soon I gained lots of weight. I was really big. I think I was like 75 kilos or 77 kilos at my heaviest. And I was miserable. Genuinely, I was miserable. And I think not only was I miserable because of how I felt I looked, which I wish I could look back and tell Habiba, like Habiba in year 10 and 11, like that I was, first of all, so much more than what I looked like. Honestly, it's like I like my personality. I don't feel ashamed about my personality at all, and I wish that I could have seen that when I was younger, and then maybe it would have helped me in that binge eating, which I was doing day in, day out. If somebody tried to stop me, I would find a way around it, and I would just eat, and that was what I did. Then in year 12, so January 2017, out of nowhere really, I think I was procrastinating studying, I decided I'm just gonna eat healthy. And on the 14th of January 2017, I decided I am cutting out everything. By everything I meant everything. And I cut out sugar, dairy, gluten, starch, but like I wasn't eating potatoes, I wasn't eating sweet potatoes, I wasn't eating anything. I was just eating salad and chicken for months. I did that for about 6 months, and I went around. First of all, I melted. I lost 15 kilos, like quickly, and I was intermittent fasting. And I was saying, it's a lifestyle. I'm just gonna cut these things out for the rest of my life. It's fine. I will never eat a piece of cake again. It's a lifestyle. I will never eat this again. It's a lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle. I wish I could go back and tell myself that. And I actually ended up, I have Crohn's disease, which is a digestive disorder. And one of the things that can trigger it is eating too much protein, eating too much fiber. And I ended up flaring very, very hard because I was just constantly eating kind of very difficult food to digest and all of that. And then very quickly, I just gained most of it back. And I thought, this is a lifestyle. And until very recently, I thought I had failed at even having the very sustainable lifestyle, when looking back, it was not sustainable at all. And unfortunately, not only have I struggled with disordered eating, but also other like eating disorders, which is difficult. It is very difficult to come to terms with how you eat, basically. And I think that I would like to go back and tell myself when I was younger that the words of this person doesn't matter. The words of that person don't matter. And I think I was very, very, very much affected, not only by you could drop a few pounds kind of comment, but also, oh my goodness, wow, you've lost weight. I had a girl tell me, when I lost all that weight, I had a girl refer to them as my whale days before I lost all that weight. And it's such a weird kind of psychological thing to know that this is now what people are thinking of me. Like,
Can I pause
it's
there? Can I ask you a
yeah,
couple questions? Number
yeah,
one,
yeah,
this is really interesting. Are a lot of those people still in your life, or are they completely out of your life now? The people that were, they're still. And how's your relationship with them now? Is it difficult to be able to
yeah.
reflect back and say, actually, they were a significant reason for some of my disordered behavior? Are you able to still maintain positive relationships, or is
It's difficult, you know. Sometimes it's very easy to, it depends on it always depends on the mindset. Like, um sometimes it's just, I don't want to go to this, I don't want to see this person because of the things that they've told me. Doesn't have to be, oh, you could drop a few pounds, or oh, your whale days. It could be that I saw this person 2 weeks ago and they told me, oh my goodness, you've lost weight, and then I could go back, and then I was afraid to go back, thinking, oh, they're gonna have changed their mind, I'm gonna have gained the weight back or something. And I think the first very important thing that I really hope people understand is that complementing weight loss is is not helpful most of the time. Sometimes people who make a sometimes you might it might be easier for one to communicate, you know. If somebody asked me, I think if someone asked me, are you proud of this weight loss, etc., etc., I'd probably say yes. But I think it does always take a degree of sensitivity when commenting on looks, or commenting on weight, and commenting on any body size kind of thing. I really struggled with that.
I can relate to that so much because also I was extremely obese. I mean, you wouldn't recognize me between my largest and where I am now. And in some ways, sometimes I still feel like you still feel heavy, like you still have that big man mentality. It never shakes. But a lot of people are so confused. They're like, why don't you show your before after pictures? Like, if you look on my social media and I don't have any pictures of when I was heavier. And everyone, so many people have come up to me and said, man, I'd be showing off all that. And it really is like this huge shameful part of my life almost for me. Like, I'm not really that proud that I made that change necessarily. I think I'm more ashamed that I let myself get to that point. I know everyone's
Yeah,
different. Some people, it might inspire them, but for me, like even my daughter, she's never seen me obese. And that was a big push, I think, becoming a father, to help me fix myself. And it's not something I talk to her, but, I don't want her to see me like that. I just want her to see me trying to be healthy all the time. And I don't know whether or
yeah,
not that's right, but that's kind of how my psyche dealt with it in my situation.
yeah. It's definitely a very interesting thing, is that on one hand, I think that we have a bit of a culture of there's half a culture of judgment and half a culture of non-judgment. And on one hand, everybody, I think the thing is, everyone, I people say, oh, I'm just looking out for you, oh, I just want you to be healthy, oh, I'm just looking out for your health. Sometimes that can not be helpful, because if somebody came up to me when I was at my biggest and said, you should really lose some weight, I'm really looking out for you, I know I should. It's a very difficult thing to get around, this shame, especially when people come across as looking out for you and all of that. And I think that there's a very big culture of, if you see a very skinny person portioning food, calorie counting, macro counting, being like, no, I'm not going to eat that, no, I'm not going to eat this, no, I'm not going to eat that, it's immediately like, oh goodness, we need to get this person some help. Whereas if you were to see a bigger person doing that, and they were portioning their food and calorie counting and exercising and all of that, then it's well done, you know.
It's a double
I
standard.
think that
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something people really have to be aware of, because eating disorders and disordered eating can impact people of many different shapes and sizes. Yeah.
That's quite fascinating. How would you describe your current relationship then with eating and food?
Well, I am actively trying to be as intuitive and I wouldn't say normal, because normal doesn't exist for anyone. The normal is not a thing. Just like perfect's not a thing and normal is not a thing. I think no one can say I'm eating perfectly, because first of all, what's the definition of perfectly? Because in my ideal, I would be able to have mainly nourishing food, nutritious food, different food groups, different macros, vitamins, micronutrients, all of that, as well as being able to have that piece of chocolate and be like, yeah, not because I'm restricting myself, because I knew if I was actively restricting myself, I can do it. I've done it before many times. I can actively restrict myself from the food that I want to eat, and that makes me miserable. And what I am striving to do is intake all of the food groups that I need, all of the vitamins, making myself as nourished as possible, while trying to be very intuitive with the food I eat. And yesterday the gyms opened for the first time since lockdown. Like, I was a couch potato for all of lockdown. I didn't move. Honestly, I posted this morning saying thank you Fit Republic for giving me permission to move. And I think I definitely try to be very active, both within myself and with people in my family, that just because the gyms are open, just because we are eating slightly healthier, doesn't mean that we have to cut everything out. For me, I found that calorie counting and restriction was dangerous for me. And being able to kind of really reflect on how each different approach kind of impact different people and oneself is very important. So right now I'm trying to be very intuitive. I'm trying not to count anything. I haven't weighed myself in ages. Yeah.
Do you feel like, has your weight over the last few years been fluctuating quite a bit? Are you still up and down, or has it actually been fairly consistent-ish for the most part?
You know, I think since my couple of years of metabolically, I think since my sort of binge eating phase of going to the petrol station and eating like probably 4,000 calories worth of sugar after school every single day, probably kind of messed with my metabolism in a way that I do fluctuate up and down quite a bit. Yeah, it's quite difficult in that sense, because when I look at the way that I eat, or I strive to eat now, part of me says, well, you're eating just like everybody else. Like, you shouldn't look this way. You shouldn't have this whatever on your arm. You shouldn't have this belly or whatever. And it's very difficult to kind of get past the I hate my year 9 to 11 year self for doing this, and kind of just trying to focus my energy into being as forgiving as possible. I did intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting was what I did in that phase where I just cut everything out. And I remember, my goodness, I remember having the timer down to the second, as in I wouldn't eat up to the second. And there were people in my class in DC who were like, you know, it's fine. Just eat 5 minutes before 12:30, right? And I'll have to be rushing off somewhere being like, I can't go until I eat, I can't go. And it just became so obsessive. So, and I remember once I came back and I think I asked someone to defrost the chicken for me so I could cook it before my 8:30 deadline to finish eating. And it wasn't ready. So I had no food right there and then. Like, I definitely could have cooked it a little bit later and eaten a little bit later. But I was miserable. I was gutted. I was crying. I was saying like this is what I'm trying to do. And that, I think, I wish that it had been clearer to me that it's fine if it's fine if you skimp on the intermittent fasting. It's fine if you have a piece of cake. Like,
I that's interesting. I mean, I've had a completely opposite experience in a way, where I do intermittent fast also, and that's been one of my primary tools. And I do calorie count sometimes. The calorie counting is actually a really good reminder to me of portion sizes. but then it helps me become a bit more intuitive later. My whole life, I struggled. And there's one thing I've learned about myself is that I'm stubborn and I do not change. I've got some amazing characteristics about me, and I've got some weaknesses about me. And my strengths seem to keep growing as I age, and my weaknesses seem to keep getting weaker, for whatever reason. So it was only recently that I decided to quit fighting certain habits and just find a way to make it work within my life. So for example, for me, I have no sense of smell. I've joked about it in a few of my videos already. So I can't taste a lot. So for me, eating is more about, I just want to feel full, because I can't enjoy food necessarily as much as other people, where it's the flavors and the tastes and I can taste strong, I can taste weak, I can taste bitter and sour and sweet. That's it. I can't anything else in between. So for me, I just want to feel full. Like that's how I know I've eaten. Like my stomach is like, ugh, and I'm getting that food come up. So I've always had that issue with portion control. So, but it's never been an issue for some reason going long periods of time without eating in between. So as long as when I eat, I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it. Like, oh yeah, I just had a meal. I'm perfectly fine going, many hours again. And then so during Ramadan, it's great for me because literally it's just like, it's part of my natural eating habit. So the intermittent fasting was great because what it did is instead of me, it really did allow me to eat to that point of my satiation, which was a little bit probably higher than normal people. Like for some reason, I need to eat way more than a normal human being does. But because I was skipping a few calories, by missing some meals here and there, I was still within the normal range. Another thing about me, and this is something new, I've been having a lot of major injuries. I had a spinal operation a few years ago. I've had knee operations in the past. I'm very, very active. And I think that used to let me get away with a lot because I would probably burn a couple thousand calories a day off of movement. I love working out. It's my hobby. Like it's for fun. So whether it's weightlifting, I used to love basketball. I used to train for marathons at one point. And that was allowing me to eat fast food still and binge a little bit and still actually not swing too much on the weight. Now recently, which is why I did this big challenge, I've stopped being able to move at all because it's the point I can't even bend over hardly to pick up my daughter because I haven't been able. I've been sitting down more often with the e-learning, a lot of things, and then I started to gain a little bit of weight, and that extra pressure was hurting. So I no longer had that cushion. So this challenge is reminding me, but the calorie count, actually, I'm enjoying it. It's making me have a better relationship. I now know what are my quick options when I don't have a lot of time. What are my better options? How can I mix? And I've eaten, if you watch some of the videos, I've eaten so many different things. I've been all vegan, vegetarian at one point, and then I'm now getting into more protein, seafood, fresh. The only thing I haven't introduced yet are fruits, which are on their way because, watermelon though. I did eat watermelon, man. I've been eating tons of watermelon. Oh, I love watermelon. Sorry, we digress.
When I came back from uni the last time, or the time before last in December, my family greeted me with the watermelon that said "Welcome back" in the airport.
If I had it my way, my wedding cake would have been a watermelon because I don't like cake that much. Luckily, I don't have a sweet tooth, but my wife wasn't having that. So let's get into something different too. We're both well, I'm a bit funny. I know I'm confusing because I look very Arab right now. But I do my mom is British, so I'm half white, half Arab, I guess. Half my family are Christian, but I was raised Muslim because my mom converted. But culture is can we talk a little bit specifically maybe about Arab culture and food and how that maybe has impacted your relationship too?
I think Arabic culture, first of all, I think we are a lot more tight-knit as families and big families than maybe Western. I don't know, obviously, because I haven't experienced it, but you see the weddings and you see the iftars and you see the suhoors and you see everyone kind of comes together, and it's I feel a lot of, or what I've experienced, a lot of it takes a village kind of. It takes a village to raise a child, and you hear a lot of opinions. You hear opinions about education. You hear opinions about how one talks, how one dresses, how one this, how one that, and a lot of, and especially in my family are very, very funny. We are a funny family. Like,
Agreed.
Jokes. We don't speak unless we're joking. I think it's very, first of all, it saddens me a little bit that mental health is still a very, it's not very taboo, but it's there. I would push it more taboo than to acceptable, because when you want to speak to someone, I think I remember I visited a school counselor in DC, just because, you know what, I actually, first of all, I think therapy, speaking and counseling is important, and I think everyone should do it. I think that being able to speak, even in a discussion like this, being able to speak about what's going on with you, being able to reflect on on past experiences, very, very important, I think. And it's still, don't tell anyone though, like, that's fine, just don't tell anyone, is what I feel like the major feeling among Arab families is. And then there's also the I'm just looking out for you side of things. There's the yes, buy that dress, bas 5 kilo, like 5 kgs, you'll be perfect for it. And it's very, very small things, I think, that kind of not indoctrinate, but lean us towards more of a mental health wary culture, more of a, should I say that, should I have that discussion, should I look like that, should I wear that sort of difficulty, which we're on our way. I'm not saying that there's a big problem. We are on our way. There are people who are speaking up about it, and that's great, but I think more of us should.
I've got mixed feelings. I mean, I've actually seen firsthand experience both sides of the culture, having been raised mostly in the West, and then now my adult life living in the Middle East and the Gulf culture, which is about as Arab as it gets out here. You know, I mean, it's a very traditional culture. So in America, it's really interesting. Like when somebody asks you, you know, would you like some food? And you say, oh, no, thank you. They'll say, okay. And then that's it. And that's really
it's like, oh, we don't eat.
Yeah. And I've got my brother-in-law now who married my sister, and he's moved from UAE actually to the US. He's been shocked a few times where he's used to the whole, because in the Arab culture, when someone offers you food, you first, you know, deny, and then they keep pushing, and then you take it. So even if you want it in the beginning, you say, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. And then it's kind of like a little system where it's a back and forth. And then in the end you give up, and then out of respect to them, you eat the food. So my brother-in-law was burned a few times in America where he really wanted the cake or cookie or whatever somebody was offering him. But out of politeness, he's just like, oh, no, thank you. And then like, okay. And he's like, hey, what the?
Like, what? Excuse me. I didn't mean that.
But another interesting thing in the UAE is, or not in the UAE, excuse me, in the Arab culture, I'd say in general, there's a link also to religion and food. Because by feeding someone, it's almost, you get rewarded for it. It's a good deed, isn't it? And by denying someone's food, it's almost like you're denying them points with the big man, with God. So because there's that relationship, it makes it even harder in a way sometimes to turn food down, even if you're not hungry, or to avoid social settings. And I was telling you earlier before we talked, I mean, my most recent weight loss was when I first got married around 8 years ago. And my wife, bless her, protected me almost. For 3 months straight, I wouldn't visit anyone. I had to socially isolate myself because I was a newlywed. All my in-laws were, you know, traditional Arabs, and they were just feeding and feeding and feeding. And I was struggling so much that, you know, I had to make a change. I was getting sick. And so my wife fought it for me. She said, nope, he's not coming. Like, what do you mean he's not coming? Oh, it's rude, disrespectful. I don't care. He's not doing it. And for 3 months, and it's a shame actually that it had to be that way, and then
Yeah.
slowly we kind of weaned myself off, where she would tell her parents, okay, he's coming this weekend, but only for coffee.
Yeah.
So, and she's like, literally coffee. If there's a date there, he's not going to touch it. If there's nuts, he's not going to eat, just coffee. And they're like, what do you mean? And then they kind of got used to that. And then it kind of moved more into, okay, we'll have a barbecue tonight, because, I was, sticking mostly high protein also and high fiber. And so it took time, but I had to almost be very rude and very antisocial. And that was the only way in the beginning I was able to handle it. Now, between intermittent fasting and also understanding a bit more about calories, so I can kind of guesstimate how many calories I'll eat at a meal now. So what I can do is prepare in advance. So I would literally skip breakfast and stuff if I went out, and then I wouldn't have to even worry. And then I don't feel guilty. I really don't when I intermittent fast and because I have an idea of how much calories I'm about to eat and how much I have for the day. I literally go there and I enjoy myself. But other people might still go and feel guilty, which luckily is not my case.
Well, I've been trying to sort of distance myself from feelings of from feeling that I have to feel guilty, or that I have to compensate. For me, it's been more of a journey to acceptance at this point than has been weight loss. When people are like, how much do you weigh? I'm just like, I don't weigh myself. I am not eating how I eat to lose weight. I'm not eating how I eat. I'm eating how I eat to nourish myself and be healthy. I'm exercising to make myself stronger and happier. I actually remember, I know you know this about me, but I especially when I was in year 9, 10, 11, I was very, 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 very crazy about my grades. As in, I would come out of an exam and I would cry and cry and cry until the teacher marked it in front of me and I got an A star. That's how I was for a couple of years. And in year 12, when I started running, it was my first 10K. I ran 10K for the first time, and I came off the treadmill and I was like, I don't care what I get today. I was so proud of myself. I'd love for it to be more, for eating habits and exercise habits to be geared more towards pride than guilt.
Good. You know? That's a great point.
I think discussions about anything, whether it's food, like you made the food example, discussions, I think, because there's a very deep culture of respect we have here. I hope that people will start to see discussion and debate less as disrespect and talking back. It's like, it's very weird, because I've grown up here forever. I've grown up here my whole life, but I have been in schools like Repton, Dubai College, where I have been around non-Arab people, and now I live in London. Everybody, I think, needs to be able to find out how they can have these discussions. It's very important mentally and that.
One thing I found to be my advantage in life, actually, because I'm coming from a mixed upbringing, I'm very straightforward sometimes about certain things, and I'll literally blame it on and I found that to be a good diffuser, especially with Arab culture, where I will tell them when I'm about to say something very straightforward that normally you wouldn't say, or you would be a little more, what's the word, sensitive about, or I don't know.
What's the word?
There is a word. Really good. I'd be more tactful or whatever about it. But if I don't want to spend time with the dance song and dance, I would tell them. So was raised in the U.S. and I'm half Western. So I'm about to be a little bit rude, because that's how we are over there. So I'll joke it off, and they'll be like, "Okay, what are you gonna do now?" And then that kind of literally, and then I'll just come out with it, and then you'd be surprised actually they take it, and they're like, "Okay," they don't take it the wrong way at that point. But I literally told, "Hey, I'm about to piss you off," and then I say it, and then they don't get pissed off. And so, versus if I just went ahead and said it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff a lot of the barrier is actually fear of upsetting other people. We don't want to get into these discussions because, you don't discuss these things with people, like, you don't want to upset that person. But most of the time, when you open up and you just talk to people, it's fine, it's always fine.
One point that you made earlier, which I love, is that because when you talked about counseling and stuff, unfortunately, I am still kind of your typical alpha male sort of, I'm trying to be a tough guy. And that's just how I was raised too, both on the Arab and American side, funny enough. But so counseling, it's never really been a thing for me. I think once I tried talking to a counselor and I was just the whole time in my mind thinking, I'm not going to tell you anything. Like, I don't care what you have to say, and it was almost, I was undermining the whole process by having that attitude.
You have to want to.
You do. But I love the fact that you didn't limit it just to like professionals and counselors, and that you're right. You are so right that even just sometimes a friend, a colleague, or I don't even know how to describe our relationship now, but that can make a world of difference. It doesn't just have to be an expert or this or that. There's so many outlets for.
Yeah, I think it's especially a lot of people who struggle with food, who struggle with mental health. A big part of it is thinking that you're alone. You're never alone, and most of the time, when you do open up to people, they will have an experience that is very, very similar. I struggled a lot in my first term at Imperial, and I didn't speak to anyone. And then the first person that by accident, I spoke to, she was so incredible. We are more alike than we are far less alone than we think. And being able to have these discussions with anyone people are like, oh, you can, even younger people, it's you can speak to a teacher or you can speak to a parent kind of thing. But I think it's more than that. I especially when I got older in school, I began to see people actually talking to each other about not issues, but issues and feelings and mental health and physical health and all of that. And for those who might not want to speak to parents, teachers, counselors, doctors, unless it's obviously serious, then don't underestimate the power of friends, really.
Yeah, there's 100 different sources of communication. Hey Siri, can you talk to me about something emotional? There's like movies about people falling in love with artificial intelligence, but you never know. It could still also be another way of going about, at least like getting from your side started. I know I'm joking, but very quickly, because we're going to try and wrap it up in a little while, but have you done any actual, like, is there any hard research or data that you'd want to show? Is that a completely different lecture or talk? Because I mean, I haven't personally researched anything myself on this issue, because it's always just kind of been on the peripheral, never been like a huge, I've never had like some kind of breakdown moment or something where I really had to, luckily.
Really had to go see something else. Yeah. Well, one of the things I read before this is a study by people called Greenleaf et al. And what their research, and we've already covered their conclusion because it kind of seemed like common sense, which they probably wouldn't like us to say, but their conclusion was that anybody, regardless of age, size, gender, whatever, can experience the negative consequences of classifying, stigmatizing, kind of weight-related issues, size-related issues, how one eats, how one looks, how one exercises. It can really affect everyone, and I think it's very important for people, judging by the research that I've done, and there's plenty if we want to do another one, that I forgot what I was going to say, that different things work for different people. For me, calorie counting and weighing myself, and that I've done it, it doesn't work for me. Intermittent fasting, by the way, intermittent fasting is actually 5-2, scientifically proven to be very good. It trains the body to deal with chemical stressors. It trains the body to deal with things that can cause things like cancer, unfortunately, like free radicals and that. So I am an advocate for intermittent fasting, but I think everybody needs to consider themselves as one case. And I know, I mean, you're doing a a calorie limiting challenge, but I assume you're not going to be eating like this permanently, right?
No, it was really just a wake up call to then get me back into more of a sustainable lifestyle.
And definitely, if this wouldn't work for me, like even as a wake up call, it wouldn't work for me, and it would work for other people, and it would work for you, and it wouldn't. Everybody needs to know that. I think the moral is that everybody is individual. We can't comment, we can't hypothesize or theorize on how other people are going to react to a word, how other people are going to react to a specific diet or lack thereof, kind of thing. And everyone needs to make their own decision regarding this.
That's extremely well said. And because with diets now, with more access to information, especially online, there's a lot of influencers and social media about different diets and fads and people become, it's almost like a cult. So you have your keto people, your intermittent fasting people, you're vegan, you're this, you're that. And everyone is so, like, it's almost like religiously attached to that one method, not realizing that at the end of the day, I mean, just let it be whatever, if you're at a healthy weight, a healthy mind, then it's okay, even if it's different than what I'm doing. And I love that you've done that. And the point you made earlier about not judging people and not categorizing people, and understanding there's a range of people with disorder problems. I've heard something similar about mental health too, where what depression looks like. Because there's been a lot of instances where people have unfortunately ended their own lives early, and everyone's like, what, you don't have to be the person that's kind of dark eyes and, avoiding people and not, and you don't have to be a person that never smiles or never, jokes and never.
Very easy for people to smile. Unfortunately, I know it's very easy to smile through it.
Yeah.
And it's very and I think just sensitivity. No matter how happy you think this person who you think is drop dead body gorgeous is, they might be struggling. No matter how happy a person looks, they might be struggling. No matter how hungry a person looks, they might be like they might be restricting themselves. They might not want to eat. My laptop's on 1%.
Oh, that's all right. We're almost done. All right. Well, let's get to before it dies, the most important thing of all here. What the heck do you do to your hair, man? I mean, hair goals. Look at me over here. Yeah, it's amazing. That's a beautiful volume. Amazing.
Thank you.
I can barely get, I mean, my beard, to be fair, is doing pretty good here. But those curls, mashallah.
Thank you. Olaplex is good.
Sponsorships, anyone? Okay. Anyway, Habiba, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm really proud. I mean, I saw you come in as a child, and now you're a young woman in one of the top universities in the world doing crazy biochemical, complicated stuff that I can't even pronounce or spell. All right, she's gone. Thank you guys for attending. What a way to end this bad boy.